we raised last year. So we're thrilled. I think probably by next month, I'll be able, I'm guessing we'll be at 110, 115. So things are going really well. We have all sorts of new sponsors. We've been talking to people that are associated in many different ways with the library. One of the sponsors that I want to point out is our vendor EBSCO Information Services. They have not donated in years, and they came in at the $2,500 level this year. So just like to kind of give everyone an idea of all the different types of people that support the events and the work that we do, and thank them all. So I'm going to turn it over to Shanta.
But real quick, Shelley, how have early bird sales been going of the tickets?
They're always quiet at the beginning. In fact, the joke was last year we sold 13 tickets until the fall guide from Alyssa hit mailboxes. It then went up to 125 tickets. So right now, actually, staff tickets are doing really well. I think we're getting the word out to staff. They can come for a discounted rate. But early bird will probably be based on the guide and or when that expiration date is, which is August 3rd. August 3rd is the last day you can buy an $85 ticket.
That's coming up pretty quick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shanta Dickerson, Executive Director of the Friends of Johnson County Library. And I would like to thank my Board of Directors for a unanimous vote to expand our facility in the Pine Ridge location where we've been for a few years now. We started selling out of that space during the pandemic when we knew that we needed to shift, but weren't quite sure what that looked like yet. And it has been wildly successful, and we have heard many, many requests for additional space. And so we're moving forward with that. This will increase our sales footprint by about 50%, and this will also give us some space to add some other functions. We get a lot of nonprofits and just other organizations in the community we would love to support through donations of books, some in-kind work there that we'll look at building in over time, and that'll be a different fundraising opportunity for people who would like to support the library. But just very excited that we're about to have some more room.
That's awesome. And Shanta, it's open Saturdays and Thursday nights?
Yes, Thursday nights through Labor Day. Yes. So since there's not a lot of light there when you get into the fall.
Winter months.
Yeah, it's not a retail space, so it's not fully equipped for after dark sales. Not really at all. It's not really a place we would encourage you to hang out in after dark. Not that it's there's not enough light.
Sure.
is really it.
And does every library location have a little book drop for the friends?
I believe, yeah,
Almost all,
yeah.
okay.
At this point, yeah. All locations take donations. It just depends on how much space that they have, and so that's another part of this is that we'll be able to separate out the sales and donation function. So we'll have more time that folks can drop off, and we can overlap with those instead of having to stagger them out. So, and that alleviates some of the burden from library staff too. We like to do that as much as we can for donations.
Great, thank you. That's good news too.
I just want to compliment Shanta and the Friends Board, attend their meetings, and the pace and research and discussions that they went through to come to this decision was extremely professional, and it was just really a wonderful thing to see. They had a lot of options, a lot of data to kind of sort through. It's a big decision, and I just thought they did a really wonderful job, and that's a big credit to Shanta and her chair as well. So it was a great work. Really, congratulations on that.
Yeah, as you know, this has been a discussion been going on for years. And I think this is exciting because it also means that they're going to have a permanent home. So I love that. And close to us. So we love that. Open to any questions if anybody else has one. Thank you very much.
Moving on to the Board of County Commissioners Liaison Report, and unfortunately Shirley Allenbrand will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. So we'll go on to reports, and first up is Board Counsel Fred Logan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Been asked to comment on several items. I'm going to start with KSA 12-1223 on state statute governing ownership of library property. I think we've talked about this before, but you, as the governing board of the library taxing district, own the library properties. All library properties that are owned by the Board of Directors of the Johnson County Library and are titled in the name of the board. So when you have a request for consideration of something like an easement over the property, that comes before you. And that would explain why you will be considering an easement proposed by Evergy. That's an appropriate thing for this board to do. I was also asked to comment on Section 208025 of the Administrative Regulation Manual. We actually set up, I think as you know, petitioning zones here at the library and at all library facilities where individuals can get out there with signs or whatever. However, there is an exception on Election Day. It's legally entirely appropriate to have an exception on Election Day to be able to move the zones on Election Day. And so that's addressed in our regulation. Then finally, I want to do something that is just extremely rare, and that is that a Kansas appellate court has issued an opinion which is very, very important on library governance in this state. And that is the opinion issued by the Court of Appeals in a case called Brenda Zaragoza versus Board of Johnson County Commissioners. The case arose out of a fall in the parking lot at the Monticello branch, and the plaintiff stepped off the curb onto a parking surface sloped towards a drain, and as a result, she broke her knee, ankle, and heel. She brought suit against the Board of County Commissioners, alleging that both the BOCC and the library board, or the library, I should say, had been negligent in maintaining the parking lot. The Kansas Court of Appeals ruled against the plaintiff and found that the recreational use exception to the Kansas Tort Claims Act applies to library property because there's a recreational purpose to some people when they visit the library. I mean, that's why some of them visit. And that they found that the recreational use exception depends on the character of the property and not at any particular given time, at any time. And there's no question that some people come to the library for recreational purposes. So in those instances, the Court of Appeals held that a plaintiff would have to show that the library is guilty of gross and wanton negligence that proximately causes the injury. That's a much higher standard of proof than simply showing negligence. So they ruled against the plaintiff, and that was the result in that. So there's a right to try to bring an appeal to the Kansas Supreme Court, but the opinion, as you can see, is quite lengthy, very well done, and I think very important in terms of library governance. And so that's why we're making the report on that. So that's Board Counsel report. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have let Dave Rotney go on vacation, and so in his stead is Kinsley Riggs. She will be much of the board meeting tonight, so get your hard-hitting finance questions ready.
I'll write them down. Hi, I'm Kinsley Riggs, Deputy County Librarian, filling in for Dave Rotney. I'd like to direct your attention to page 10 in your packet, where you'll see the Johnson County Library Total Revenue Report. This report for July is showing revenues and expenses as of May 31st. At the end of May, we're approximately 42% of the way through the year, and the library has collected approximately $27.9 million in revenue, which is about 48% of the $57.8 million budgeted. If you factor out the 6.5 million use of reserves, the 27.9 million collected is 54% of that 51.3 million, and in line with where we should expect to be. As the end of May, the total expenditure obligations are at 31.7 million, or 55%. It seems high for this early in the year, but the number is really closer to 45% when you factor out the transfers made to the capital projects and the interfund transfers to the county general fund. And those transfers pay for our JCL facilities, HR, and payroll. May I answer any questions?
Mr. Sims, did you have
Do you have any questions? Anything to add?
No, I'll be nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll save that for Dave.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. As you might expect, when folks go on vacation, we try to plan ahead and give everybody on admin a different chance to kind of step in and learn some different things. So thanks to Kinsley for stepping in to learn a little bit more about finances and the budget. So we will now go to the branch services statistics report. And so we have Jared Harper and John Kehoe, regional managers, that are joining us today.
Good afternoon. I am Jared Harper. I am the regional manager for the Southwest region, and for those using geography, that is Lenexa, Gardner, Spring Hill, and Edgerton. With me is John Kehoe, who is the regional manager for the Northwest region, right? Yes, Northwest, which is Monticello, Shawnee, and DeSoto. Today we'll be presenting trends in branch services from the years 2020 to 2023. Before we begin, though, I do want to speak a bit about how this reporting may change in the future. As you know, branch services is in the process of establishing a new organizational structure with regional management. We're moving to this regional model rather than a branch-specific model, and this will alter the data this will alter how we gather, group, and analyze our data. We'll be reevaluating these practices as we move forward. So I just want to put that little caveat that this is not going to be the same show next year. All right, let's begin. This slide here shows our visitation trends over the past 4 years. Visitations, as you can see, have been steadily rising each year since COVID, and seasonal patterns have held steady for us.
Next slide. So this is our circulation broken down by branch. These statistics are in general dependent on the size of the branch and the size of its collection, which is why our larger branches have much higher bars. We have seen a slight downward trend in the circulation of physical materials at our larger branches, which is the circulation represented here. We believe this decrease is associated with increased digital adoption in those service areas. Physical material circulation remains strong and steady at our smaller branches. And you will also note that Oak Park circulation was down in 2023, and this is because it was closed for a portion of that year for maintenance work. Our next slide shows visits by branch. Overall visits to our branches have increased steadily over the past 4 years. You'll notice that there is an increase larger than some of the others on Central. And we believe that that is in part caused by Oak Park patrons who came to Central during the closure. There has been an increase at visits in Gardner. This is in part due to population growth in that part of the county. The city of Gardner has increased its civic engagement, and we are benefiting from that. And we believe that the return of in-branch programming essentially has played a role. We've also noticed some demographic changes in the Leawood service area. More younger families are moving into that part of the county, and we believe that that may account for some of the increased visitations in 23 that we've seen there.
All right, so this slide compares the number of full-time employees at each branch, FTE, with the combined total circulation and visits. We measure visits and circulation to track potential patron interactions. By comparing these, we are able to measure how many staff we have to meet that need. The branches with higher numbers have more volume of use per staff members than the branches with lower bars. For example, a staff member at Blue Valley is busier than a staff member technically at Shawnee. Our goal will be to reallocate staff to better balance the workload between the branches. You will notice that DeSoto, Edgerton, and Spring Hill do not have numbers for 2023. We staff these locations from the Monticello and Gardner locations, so the FTE are represented in those branches.
For our next slide, I want to talk about curbside. This was a service that we introduced as a COVID response to try and maintain safe access for our patrons. And obviously, curbside saw overall higher use in '21 than it has in subsequent years, due in large part due to patrons' cautions around COVID. As pandemic restrictions lifted, we have seen that patrons prefer to come back into our spaces, and so curbside has been trending down. The exception has been during building closures for extended maintenance. Both Gardner and Cedar Row, as you can see, saw significant increases in curbside usage during their closures in 2022 and 2023. After curbside, we look at drive-through visits. Overall, our drive-throughs were very well used during 20 and 21. Again, we believe that's due to pandemic caution. The slight downward trend in subsequent years is to be expected.
Our next slides will, so in our next slides, you'll see some of our computer usage and statistics. We gather this through two types of statistics: number of sessions per patron and patron visit, and number of sessions per computer. Together, these help us determine the extent of the need for this service and whether we're appropriately equipped to meet it. So in our current slide here, the number of computer sessions per visit help us see how many of the patrons in our spaces use a computer when they are here. For example, you can see at Lenexa that 0.1 means about 1 in 10 of our patrons are using a computer, while at Central it's close to 0.2, which means nearly 1 in 5 patrons use a computer there. Some of our branches have seen decreased computer usage based on increased adoption of technology. More people are bringing their own devices in. Other branches have seen steady or increased use. This helps us see some of the different needs that exist in our different branch service areas. Overall, computer usage remains a popular service with us.
For our next computer slide, the number of sessions per computer tells us whether we have enough computers to meet usage need at each branch. Higher bars mean each computer is used more, and we use this data to inform decisions about how we equip our spaces. So finally, we want to look at our public room bookings. These stats include study rooms, meeting rooms, and conference rooms all added together, and they depend in large part on the number of rooms in each branch. For example, Central has 21 public rooms, whereas Gardner has 3. Visits have increased post-pandemic, which means use of our public rooms has also increased. We are currently examining room use at Central. You can see that there is a very large increase between 22 and 23. And we are looking into why that might be. After we opened in 21, we were closed for a refresh. We reopened and we saw room use got very popular. Our communications department has also been promoting the library as a third space, and we're starting to see that increase some of our room use. In addition to our public rooms, I also want to mention that we are examining and we have recently changed the way we make our furniture choices in some of our spaces as we have refreshed our branches. We're looking to create spaces within our libraries that can provide a sense of privacy for individuals and groups outside of the rooms. So we have, for example, more private study carrels and that sort of thing. Overall, we continue to assess how our spaces are being used with the goal of meeting the needs that we see. So those are the major branch statistics that we wanted to present. And what questions do you have for us?
Have
Is
you
there-
seen, oh,
Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was just, I mean, so you're starting to see some trends. Are there decisions we're starting to make as far as, shifting computers, possibly looking to add another meeting room here or there? I mean, certainly some of them are busier than others and.
Sure. So with the technology, we are with our IT department. Our IT department is a fantastic department here, and they are very good at using this data to see what sort of usage of our computers are needed. Do we need this many computers? Can we take those computers and use them somewhere else? So we are working with our IT department to facilitate that. There are some things that are happening. And I missed your second, study rooms. That is also something that the regional managers are currently going through with Adam Wathen, is that we are looking at each individual space and seeing what are the trends, what are the standards that we want to have at every location, and does that mean that we need an increase of study rooms or meeting rooms, and how could we make that happen? As we know, physical space this physical space. It doesn't change as much, and seeing what we can do then with this third space to create some of those more private settings. If we can't add a room to the space, then maybe we can add some furniture that helps us with that idea and providing the patrons with that sense of privacy too. So, long answer to yes, we are looking at those kind of things.
And I think that's part of the renovations that we're planning on doing at Spring Hill and DeSoto too, is adding some much-needed meeting space.
Yes.
My question was, do we have a goal for visits per patron that we'd like to reach? Or we know we're not back to pre-pandemic levels, but
We don't really have a goal. One of the things that we're doing, especially because we are moving into the regional operations model, is we're taking a fresh look at a lot of this data to start seeing what it adds up to for each region. We look at branch use, we look at regional use, and some of that's going to inform how we want to allocate our resources regionally. That's a new level of strategy that we have not undertaken before, and we don't want to necessarily presume answers to questions that we don't know what all the questions are yet. So we are looking at all of this with fairly fresh eyes, looking at what the needs are based on the data, looking at the data we have and the quality of it. And from that, we do want to start making strategic decisions at this new operational level.
great, that sounds great. And also, not all of the locations have a curbside.
Correct.
Okay.
Not all have curbside and not all have drive-through either, but between the two, we've got pretty good car access.
Great.
When you asked about visits per capita, I think last year we were at, on average, about 3.3 visits per capita. So every citizen visiting the library about 3 times. And then this, in '23, I think it jumped up to 3.7. So it tracks on their data about more people are visiting.
And I know compared to peers, we're much better.
Right, we're much higher. So that's just another slant. We're not saying every citizen does visit 3 times, but when you kind of average that out. So that's another piece that will kind of wrap into that larger view of what is the goal? Is it 5 visits per capita? Is it 4? Is it 10, 20, 100, all that, so.
This may not be for you, it may be for Michelle, but while we're talking on the meeting room, the bookings, I know our goal is to get the computerized at all of them. I think that's a project that you're working on, is that correct? Are we almost there? Or is that?
I can see her eyeballs, but I can't see the rest of her face. I don't want
Probably
to,
just from like a like if you need to
Right.
cancel or change same day,
right.
and
Yeah, and so our path has been, as we've obviously built new buildings or redone, that's been a standard that we've put in. We haven't yet kind of flipped over to that model of, just like when we had Shawnee close, we haven't yet flipped to where when we close for like HVAC and those type of things, that we're going in and doing that, adding that technology. I know that's something that we really want and we're looking at. It's a little bit of a balancing the cost and the time, and when does all of that work cross over into, this is no longer a capital replacement project, and it's really capital improvement. So some of that's money and some of it's time, but that need is there, and I think that strong desire from staff and certainly patrons to have that kind of integrated technology like you see here at Central and some of the newer buildings, to have that everywhere.
yeah.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
much.
Thank you for your time.
Right, now I'll welcome Megan Clark to the podium.
Good afternoon, Megan Clark, project coordinator with the library. Oh, yeah, okay. Kind of hard to see around. We're looking here at our capital replacement projects, capital replacement plan and capital improvement plan, that is. So a couple of updates here. As far as the Lackman sale, we're in the closing period of that, and that is on track. And so we're looking at, I think, the 23rd of July for a closing date. So we'll update with, you when that has concluded.
And as far as we know, nothing's been discovered in due diligence that is a red flag.
So the due diligence period has concluded as planned, and so we're in the closing period now. So yeah, nothing came out of that. And then as far as our Spring Hill and DeSoto renovations, we are drafting the RFP to select an architect for that. And I know we now have our board liaisons, Charles and Anna. And so I'll be reaching out to you about that process and joining to observe the architectural interviews. That's where we are on that, looking to bring that back to you sometime in the fall for notification about the selection. Any questions on those? Okay. On our next slide, we've got our capital replacement plan projects. So work here at Central on the west wall is underway. We did have a lot of heavy rain last week, so that pushed some things back a little bit, but we are moving forward with that, and we're looking at that work ongoing through July, and so concluding possibly in July, or depending on how weather continues to go, a little later than that. After that, we'll assess if there's any cosmetic needs for patching things up after that work, and then that would conclude the west wall work. So we'll keep you posted on that. The Edgerton sewer work concluded on the 22nd of June, and also the city repaved the parking lot during that time, so that was a nice bonus. So they're up and running again, and that's all done. For Shawnee, as Kelly mentioned, we have a briefing sheet to bring to you here in a little bit about the closure for the second phase of this project for the HVAC replacement work. So I'll come back and chat with you about that. As far as the roofing goes, so we had roofing work at Shawnee, and that is concluding this week and was successful. And our next branches would be Oak Park and Gardner for some roofing work. And then finally, Cedar Row electrical work was completed, and Cedar Row opened yesterday. There were rain delays and contractor delays a little bit for that too. And as a result, we decided to take advantage of those weather delays to add some concrete work that's been needed over there. And so that's exciting. I think we gained a parking spot over at Cedar Row as a result of that work, and also made it easier to access our dumpster. So Cedar Row is open again. And that concludes my report. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. On to my updates. So I talked a little bit about this last time, and I think you've received a few emails about the October board retreat. The retreat is typically about 4 hours. Traditionally, you all will review the comprehensive library master plan priority list and affirm or change and discuss that. And so since we're kind of at the end of that plan, we will be talking with the chair and vice chair about what is the next part to do. My guess is that will be something to kind of begin that thinking and planning for you all. We'll use that time to really dive into what is it that you see for the future of this community connected with library. So more of those details to come along. We have October 30th as the date, and we're currently, originally it was noon to 4, and we've switched it from 1 to 5 to make it a little bit more convenient for a few members. So if you have topics that you are interested in for the retreat, let Kelly know, and then she and I and Anna will discuss that probably in the next month or so as we start to put that agenda together. The other, and then Kinsley has all the other updates except the last one, which I'll handle. And while she's coming up to the podium, I just wanted to welcome our new employees here in the front row and a little bit in the second row. A wonderful group. We have 2 internal promotions. They're sitting on the edge there on the aisle, and then everyone else is new. And I think this is the group that we have had the most connections within the library. So everyone seems to have worked with somebody or lived next door or knew their child. So they're very connected even on their first week of work. So welcome to all of you.
Hello again. 1 of 4. Here we go. Tonight I'm presenting on the Prairie Village update. As you know, we are doing a shared study project with the City of Prairie Village and the YMCA. Our work, the library's work in this, is currently on hold. If you move to the next slide, thank you. You'll see the dashed line boxes here. They're tiny, but those are all completed parts of the process. And on the next slide, it'll show that we are at this green box where the core team, which includes members from all three entities, are working to select the preferred option. We're holding there ahead of our third public meeting. This is so that the City of Prairie Village can discuss their pro forma agreement with the YMCA, and that has garnered a lot of discussion with their city council. And so they are going to go back for further discussion with their city council with more information about that agreement and pricing. That's expected to happen in August, and we are not involved with that. So we are just in a holding pattern. We hope to continue those discussions with the third public engagement session this fall, and that'll look at that conceptual design study that we've completed. Many of you have had the opportunity to tour that site, but if you have not seen the Harmon Park site, we are more than happy to walk around that site with you and let you know where the proposed buildings would be and that sort of thing. So if that's helpful to you, we can schedule those tours. Do you have any questions for me? Next update is the strategic plan. The library is committed to listening to our community, providing services, materials, spaces, programming, and ideas that bring value to people's lives. Our 24-28 strategic plan is designed in a way that allows us to learn and adjust course and respond nimbly to opportunities and challenges while we stay rooted in our vision and mission, which you see on the screen. Our 5 key performance areas, community, convenience, education, operations, and communication, reflect the essential daily work that we do to serve our community and the long-term initiatives that propel us forward. This plan is our commitment to our patrons, to the taxpayers, to our board, our volunteers, and our staff. The administrative team identified 3 organizational priorities for 24 and 25. The KPAs create focus for how we're serving our community. The priorities consist of projects that require significant resources from across the system. Using these 3 organizational priorities as a filter, we have been able to move towards our KPAs, ensuring we have capacity for both the day-to-day work and preparing for what's coming next. So these 3 priorities are what we want to achieve first, and we'll revisit them throughout the remaining years of the plan and adjust as needed. In previous years, we've reported on the key performance areas, so we're going to pivot now and report on these organizational priorities for this strategic plan. The next few slides highlight work that you are well familiar with, coordinated by our library project coordinators and our facilities partners. So in the first trimester of 2024, we turned our beautiful new building in Merriam into a library. Construction had concluded and the installation of shelving, furniture, technology, and the collection began. Testing and training for building systems and workplace etiquette was completed, and then staff were welcomed into the building. Our public engagement at this point of the year was very high, and it reached its peak. We find that with most of our large building projects, the coordination of various types of installs with internal and external partners is our greatest and most worthwhile challenge. Other facilities projects that were happening during this first trimester, the Corinth replacement studies, which we just talked about, made progress through our conceptual design work with the City of Prairie Village and the YMCA. And we also studied our existing Corinth site at this time. We had 2 well-attended meetings, which those are the images from on the screen, at the Meadowbrook Park Clubhouse. And so that's where those public engagement sessions were held, and they were very well attended. As with any multi-party study with different governing bodies, our stakeholder alignment and communication is where a lot of our energy is going. We also worked with real estate broker CBRE to generate interest and offers for the Lackman Library. Ultimately, this led to the contract negotiations, which you've heard about, and the sale of the Lackman property to be concluding soon. We worked on several capital replacement projects during the first 4 months of the year. Our central west wall contracts were approved, which is addressing the settling of foundation. At Shawnee, the first phase of renovations happened with new carpet, new shelving, remodels to the bathrooms, that's always my favorite part of a remodel, and ADA improvements at that location. Corinth and Cedar Row's elevators were modernized and fully opened. Leawood lighting controls and fixtures were upgraded. And at Monticello, the HVAC continued to want our attention with some troubleshooting and replacement parts. Our next priority, SORT 2. What is SORT? SORT is the Staff Organization Redesign Template, and it's an overarching term developed for the analysis and evaluation of our departments to ensure we are structured in the best way to serve our community and deliver the services they need and want. This specific redesign that I'm reporting on this trimester and for this year is regarding our branch services and our program services. That staff works in our 14 branch locations in the community and online to deliver our materials, assistance to patrons, and our services. Over the course of several years, we determined a series of challenges. We had communication challenges, structural or reporting confusion, and then competing priorities for these departments. This redesign work will build clarity and expectations for each position so that we can deliver the highest quality service to our community. In January through April of this year, that work transitioned from a design phase to an implementation phase. So all of our branch and program managers were placed into their new roles so that they could begin the development of department charters, governance structures, and building their teams. We anticipate the work of staff learning and training to continue throughout this year. This work is really coming in waves as we place staff into new positions, let them adjust and orient, and then go on to the next wave. So the goal is really to let the teams help shape the experience that they are going through and to be able to team build as they are learning the work and developing the next phase of the project. The two biggest challenges with this priority are time. One is time. It's a very large endeavor, and we are committed to doing it to the best of our ability. And we don't always move quickly because of the other challenge, and that is change management. We are moving over 100 staff into newly developed positions, and we want to make sure that we're coaching individuals at a fair pace, that we know this is impacting their work, how they show up every day, what they are expected to do every day, and we want them to have time to learn and absorb as they move through this process. And our last priority, DEIB. So the Johnson County government is committed to understanding and addressing the needs of our diverse communities and staff as we serve people from different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, experiences. And the library's diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging priority highlights our focus to ensure that we are welcoming to all. It emphasizes opportunities for our community and staff engagement and ensures our understanding by listening and learning. The county now leads our annual employee engagement survey, as well as our efforts to create a workplace inclusive of everyone. You'll see the VIBE logo on the screen that stands for Voices of Inclusion, Belonging, and Equity. This slide is showing you things about that and the employee engagement survey. Our engagement survey had a very high response rate and highlighted that our staff is really proud to work here and that they are aligned to our mission. We do have opportunities to build trust in our senior leadership and in building an environment where all employees feel valued. We weren't completely surprised by these results given the amount of change we've been going through, and we are actively and currently working to seek input from staff and action plan around what we heard and start down a path of improvement in those areas. During this time period, the final touches to our JCL internal VIBE team was happening, and it is now ready to implement. So at our next check-in on strategic plan, I'll be able to tell you more about that team and hopefully who is on it. And lastly, the library's website, as you know, is a major gateway into all of our services and locations, helping our community and patrons learn about what we have to offer. We have a longstanding commitment to web accessibility and following those best practices, and it's critical to stay on top of that as they rapidly evolve. As with the previous slide, we want to ensure the library's website is a space where everyone is welcome and it is usable by all. We launched a website refresh project to ensure we have the infrastructure to meet our community's needs. Over the last year, we've talked to the community members and staff about how they use and navigate our website as we prepare to select a new content management system for our refresh. And you will hear about that in much more detail next month. We've also spoken with other local library systems about their accessibility efforts and best practices, which really helped us identify additional resources and opportunities for collaboration with them as we keep planning. So remember that these priorities are what we want to achieve first out of a much larger list of projects, and these are our priorities for the years 2024 and 2025. They will be revisited and adjusted as we need. And our strategic plan in total spans 5 years. It is directed by you via the key performance areas that are reviewed at the beginning of each strategic plan, and it is intended to change as we deliver on our goals. I will review these 3 priorities with you 3 times a year, and it is by no means all of the work we do. It is just these 3 priorities. So we hope that you pick out more pieces of what we're doing through the department statistical reports each month. Do you have any questions?
Can you just give me the sort for dummies version? Like, what does that mean, you know?
That means
for
that we
everyone?
had a large group of staff that was committed to doing work for a lot of areas of the library. They were giving a little to a ton of things. And we saw that there was confusion in their priorities. There was confusion in kind of reporting structure and who to listen to. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I go to that meeting, this meeting? And that they were being pulled in many directions. So it created a lot of communication challenges. And we looked at, were those behavioral challenges, were those procedural challenges, or were they structural? And so this project specifically responds to the structural challenges of that our organization hadn't changed structures in 20 plus years. And the library didn't work the same anymore. And to be able to be responsive to what our community needs, we wanted to restructure our organization to best do our work. Is that good in a nutshell?
Yeah.
That was a lot of
regional
years.
manager.
Clear that it will take time and
Well,
it'll be
can you
struggle.
give like an example of what changed?
Yeah.
The regional managers, right? That's
You
new.
met John and Jared earlier for the branch statistical report. Prior to their sort switch, they were branch managers, and they each were responsible for one building, sometimes more than one. As we were moving towards this project, we started to combine branches as there were vacancies. And so now they are regional managers, and so they oversee the strategic vision and the operations for a subset of our branches, and are really working to coordinate that work. But they're working across the entire system so that we make sure those 14 branches are building together and doing the same system-wide work in training and resources and what they have available in programs and to our patrons. And they'll also be they'll be working at the patron experience in the branch, and then the patron experience when we go out into the community. And this model will really hopefully help us increase that community outreach.
The word SORT stands for?
Staff Organizational Redesign Template.
So really more about streamlining operations and efficiencies, kind of like when we said, well, not each branch is going to do their own story time or whatever. We're going to have
We'll have a branch
System-wide.
services department, all of our branches and frontline staff that are dedicated to helping our patrons when they walk in the door with their readers advisory help, technology help, resources, any of those things. And we'll have a program services department that then goes out and deploys programs across the system and in the community. So it's really giving each individual position a really clearly defined job description and expectations.
and for the most part, it's been well received.
It has been 100+ people going through a big change. Yeah.
I think we'll know in about 4 years if it's well-received, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think what Kinsley said is, when you take that many people through change, it can't all happen at once. So if you're one of the later groups to transition into a new position, you are just watching and thinking, can't this go sooner? And if you're the group that's transitioning, you want to go slow because you want to learn everything. So we've had to really balance those personal preferences as we've updated job descriptions. That can't go fast enough for some folks. The people who are doing that work really want to take their time and make sure they get it right. So it's a challenge for sure.
And the thing I'd add is that we hope to have everybody in their new position by the end of September. That's our goal. We think maybe a year from now, we will see what it looks like fully functioning. People have learned, trained, and know what they're doing, and feel a little bit more settled in.
And so we're still having children's services, but it's programming services, so it's
And
sort of
branch
more of an
services.
umbrella? Okay.
Yeah, everybody will be serving all of our patrons and community. And so we still have the same readers advisory services in the branches. We will still have programming for all ages. Different people will be responsible for different pieces. Yeah, we haven't limited any services through this work.
Yeah, change is always hard, so that's tough to balance. I guess the true test is if your turnover hasn't significantly increased, from a percentage standpoint, then you've probably done a great job when all is said and done.
We hope so. We put a lot of effort into studying it. We certainly had a lot of, staff input and different voices looking at, here's what we want to be, and will this work, and how do we actually do that? So I think in a year, we'll definitely have a sense of what's happened. So, yeah.
Great report, thanks.
Hi.
Still here.
The budget presentation report is next. As Kelly mentioned, the library made a presentation to the Board of County Commissioners on June 20th, and our board chair, Kelly Kilgore, gave opening remarks, and County Librarian Tricia Solenchop and Finance Director Dave Fratney made a formal presentation of our budget proposal. It was very well received. The commissioners commended the library on high community satisfaction scores, complimented us on the success that has been gained in employee turnover rates, for the digital collections we offer, and for additional patron access to physical collections through alternative means like curbside and drive-through. There was praise of the makerspace and the plans to increase the service hours and access with the 2 additional employees that we've requested in this budget. And the BOCC was also complimentary of our collaboration that we had with the county to host the recent budget open houses at Monticello and Central. All of the commissioners' questions were addressed at the budget presentation, and we are happy to report that we did not have any items come back on the revisit list. So it was very well received. Do you have any questions about the budget presentation? Yeah, you're welcome. Lastly, Juneteenth was celebrated on June 19th at the Lenexa City campus. Juneteenth is a recognition and celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. It's a combination of the terms June and 19th, as you can see, and takes place on June 19th. This date is one in which Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to ensure the freedom of all enslaved people in the state. Juneteenth became a national holiday in 2021, and then the county, through the Board of County Commissioners, made it a county holiday last year. Johnson County government held its 3rd annual celebration at the Lenexa Civic Campus, and the theme was Jubilee of Juneteenth, celebrating a legacy of freedom. The library hosted an information table along with 17 other department offices and agencies from the county. So over 500 people were able to browse those information booths, connect with their county government in various ways. And there was a well-attended children's space where the library donated a lot of materials so that the kids could enjoy a craft and some coloring. This program included a keynote speaker who was Glenn North, and if you remember, Glenn also wrote a poem to commemorate the opening of a Monticello library. There was live music from the Lewis Neal Big Band and a roller dance performance, which was really, really cool, by Skate Shot Studios. This event also honored the memory of past MC Nathan Lewis Jackson, and Nate is the late husband of our library colleague, Megan Mascoro Jackson. And Amaya and Savion, their daughter and son, read their father's poem titled Juneteenth at the event. So it was very memorable for Megan and her family to honor Nate. May I answer any questions?
Did you get a lot of signups for new library cards?
I don't know how many we got. We handed out a lot of summer reading flyers and the passport, so I know that those went well, and compasses. My daughter learned what a compass is.
Cool.
Thank you, Kinsley.
Thank you.
The last update is about the Antioch property and the next steps. As you know, we're closing in on selling Lackman, and so the next building before you is the Antioch property. Over the next couple months, we will bring the board some information about the Antioch property and potential next steps. These are no decisions will be made today, that we're just looking to share information, heading toward, if you need a bigger discussion, probably at the October board retreat, but just trying to fill in some of the pieces along the way. I don't want to assume everybody knows information about Antioch. So you'll see on the screen and in your packet, just want to start off with the basics, where the property is. And you may know, or you might be surprised to know, we actually own 4 parcels of land. You can see the Antioch building that you would know is on the right side of that paper with a red X in it. And just for orientation, the top of that is north and the bottom is south, to give you a sense of Antioch and Shawnee Mission Parkway. The smaller rectangle to the left of the Antioch Library is a library building we have referred to as a support services building. We have different maintenance staff that office out of there. And then if you cross over Slater Street, there's a small rectangle, and that is also library property, it's parking. There is a Chipotle that it sits a little bit toward Shawnee Mission Parkway, if you're familiar with that area. And then if you go one large rectangle or large square to the left, that is also library property, and it's currently parking as well. So that information may not be known to everybody. If you've been around for a while, you may be familiar, or if you moved books from Antioch down to Merriam, you may have walked on some of that property. So just to set your mind as far as here's the information that we're dealing with. Before you, over the next many months, decisions can be many. There are, of course, probably 3 obvious options. Dispose of all of that property immediately, keep that property, lease it to another entity. There's a variety of options within that. And then a third option could be to pause on selling or disposing of this property and including it in the comprehensive library master plan refresh that will happen next year. So there may be more opportunities that you all come up with. Those are the kind of the 3 that come to mind the quickest. And as I said, I think we put in the board packet a link to the library policy 50/2070 that talks a little bit more in detail about disposal and transfer of property. So those are always good places to start. What's our policy? What is the property? What do we own? Where is it? Those types of things. On the next slide, you will see a little bit of the surrounding area. If you're familiar with that area, you've seen this development, but just, again, to kind of fill the knowledge, this is the opposite corner. There has been great development. If you have lived in the county for a while, you may know this property as Sears and then Kmart. So it looks completely different now. There's apartments, there'll be restaurants, and you can see this development again on that south side of Antioch and Shawnee Mission Parkway. There's several restaurants there, and I'm sure that development will continue to kind of reveal itself as that construction takes place. So, so that is our neighbor to the south. This is all within the city of Merriam. And so you'll, as I think Megan mentioned earlier, we'll also look at this property for some easement information a little bit later in the agenda. So I wanted to kind of set the stage as far as next steps with this information. Also ask you if there are any legal questions that we can answer, Fred can answer today, or if there are any assumptions or questions you have just in general about the property or kind of our process.
I guess I would ask to confirm that the 4 parcels could be considered independent of each other. Is that correct?
That is correct. 2 are, kind of, the 2 sets kind of could go together, or you could do it all in one or you could do it all in 4 different things. So yes, we have complete flexibility. As you all own that property, you can kind of split it up how you like. Let's see, between Antioch and Slater, you'll see above what I would call the second parcel, the small rectangle, there is a business, and I'm blanking on their name, something exceptional abilities, something along those lines. So that is a small building on that corner, and then Caribou Coffee sits to the south of that. So those are our 3 neighbors that are the closest. So as you think about this or drive by these sites, and as questions develop, certainly send those our way, and we can continue to answer those and kind of compile those answers each month. In August, we'll bring you a little bit more information, and we'll just kind of keep building on that until we start to see what direction you're leaning. We can bring a formal motion or a formal staff recommendation as we get deeper into this information. So,
I mean, my initial thoughts is we probably don't want to lease. I think we either want to, I don't think that's a business we want to get into. But, you know, I think everything else is open. I mean, if something presents itself that it seems to make sense, and, you know, we did that with Lackman just from a historical, you know, we considered doing, you know, kind of giving that to the Friends, and it just kind of didn't make sense, and the Board of County Commissioners weren't really interested too. Just kind of fill in a couple of the newer ones. But otherwise, I think it just depends on if it makes more sense to break them up, and I think that's probably where the real estate broker, whether we retain who we've used from Lackman or go somewhere else, I think that's probably maybe their expertise, or just depending on what kind of, I think, opportunities we get, it'd be my thoughts.
yeah, and that is,
I
you
think.
bring up a good point. So for Jenny, when we wrote the RFP to hire a broker to sell Lackman, we added in some flexibility that if that broker did a good job and the board was happy with that performance, that we could extend that contract to have them sell Antioch. So we wouldn't have to go out for a second RFP. And so that's a little bit why we want to not make any decisions about Antioch till we're done with Lackman. Yeah.
I would just say that the staff wrote the RFP that way to make sure that the real estate broker, that he did a good job. And I will just report to the board that both Andy and I feel that the broker's done an outstanding job on Lackman.
Yeah, and just to add for those who weren't here, we did try to sell it on our own, but we didn't have any takers, so we decided we needed some expertise in getting out the word, and CBRE has done a great job.
So I could expect August, September to obviously have you all decision about the broker, and then there are other information that broker might be able to bring back, an appraisal, looking at that, the sale value, the comps in that particular area. So that's some of that information that I'd like to bring back.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the appraisal of, like, separating it versus combining it, and, you know, maybe that's an October board retreat, where we can have a much, much longer discussion than a few minutes here and there. Would be my least
And-
thoughts initially.
Tricia, the carrying costs of just, it's very, very minute. I mean,
Yes.
It's very small, so we don't have to rush into anything. It's not like we've got any money burning a hole in our pocket.
Unless
Yeah.
somebody just gave us a huge offer and we're like,
Right.
ooh, we don't want to
Right. I think
waste
y'all are
this
in a
opportunity.
very good position financially to make the best decision for the library and for the community. You aren't pressed to sell or to sell at a price you're not comfortable with. So, all right. Thank you. That concludes my updates.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move the library board of directors approve the consent agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Inviting myself back up again. So I've got a couple of items for action here and a couple for information. So our first item is consideration of temporary closure at Shawnee for CRP HVAC work. So this is the second portion of this. So we'd propose to close on August 19th. We'll be reopening again in October with that date to be announced later. But we are trying to squeeze in between our elections and be open again so it can be an early polling place at Shawnee.
Anything you want to add, Tricia, on this one?
No.
Does the board have any questions or need further discussion? Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a temporary closure of the Shawnee Library from August 19th through late October to complete planned capital replacement, HVAC replacement.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our next one. I want to make sure I have it the right order here. So we have a request to approve an easement agreement with Evergy on the Antioch Library property. So the city of Merriam reached out to us about they're doing a lot of development there, and Evergy was requesting an easement to do some burying and beautification of their lines on our property. So that's what I'm bringing to you today. Any questions on that?
Well, I would just ask for the public record that we have an opinion either from council or from staff that it doesn't depreciate the value of our property, that in no way we're liable for anything that might go awry with the installation, just things that cover the library.
We did have some back and forth, and our legal team looked at that agreement, and we made some recommendations for changes. So
We did have some revisions that we proposed, and Evergy did agree to all of those. And we feel that the agreement is now in good form, addressing the kinds of concerns that you talked about.
I think the one benefit to having the lines buried, that is a benefit to whomever long-term if we sell that property. We've all been through trees coming down and those things, so I think that it does improve it in that small way, so.
I think this is a great idea everywhere, probably in the country,
Right.
but
Especially your
if it
house,
were,
yeah.
if it were feasible, then, so I'm in favor.
Any other questions or discussion? Since you're in favor, Dave, go ahead and make the motion.
All right. I move to authorize an easement agreement with Evergy Metro, Inc. for utility infrastructure upgrades on the Antioch Library property.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple here today for information. So first up, a request for temporary closures at Blue Valley and Leawood for security upgrade work. So these are up to 2 days on different days at each branch to finish up the planned security upgrades there. We've been doing those at some of our other branches, taking advantage of closures for other reasons to do that work. But we don't have any planned closures at those branches, so this is a separate ask. So we'll be bringing that back to you next month.
Well, thank you for considering and spacing them out. How many's left? Pretty upgrades in.
For this particular work with like the badging and access controls for staff areas, these are the last of the planned ones that we're doing now. All right, and then finally, we have informational on consideration of groundwater monitoring agreement at Spring Hill. So I think a local gas station had a possible environmental issue. Spring Hill reached out to us to see if they could put some groundwater wells on our property to monitor that. And that may or may not need to happen at Spring Hill. There could be other locations, but we just wanted to bring that to your attention this month. And if we need an agreement, we'll bring that back at that time.
The city of Spring Hill is working with the KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, on this. So we're working with the experts, and like Megan said, they may choose to place the monitoring on other property around that and not the library. We wanted to let you know that that's a possibility.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And then the final information item is the consideration of ARM 105010, and that's your bylaws. You can see on the, I guess it's the third page, fourth page, the change is on the agenda lineup. So we've added the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we've taken this opportunity to update how we do the remarks. We typically, or historically, had done the Friends of the Library, and then we've rolled that into the Development Department report. So that's more of a, I guess, technicality. We've been doing it that way, we just hadn't updated the ARM recently, so that's that second change. But the first change is the addition of the Pledge of Allegiance. So, and I know there were earlier questions or some conversation that was requested.
Yeah, I have some concerns that while I have no problem with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, I'm concerned of what value it brings to this board for this meeting and what we're here to do to the community we're here to service.
Well, I guess I'll take a crack at why I asked the question in the first place. I feel like the nature of this board and the board being a separate taxing entity and that we are public servants. I know in many other public forums, public meetings, where we are serving the people, that standing to recite the Pledge of Allegiance is an important part of that agenda. And so I was feeling, as I watch the county commissioners meetings, that includes it. I don't know about Parks and Rec. They do, so that they do. I was just feeling like it was a missing element to the purpose of being here, serving the community and serving the people. So that's why I asked the question.
I appreciate that, and I certainly understand that, but I think the impact is to the community that we serve. We serve communities that are various different backgrounds that I get concerned if we're hitting a slippery slope here, and just the impact to me that it could potentially have outweighs the value of doing it. That's just.
And getting one citizen comment with concerns means there are more. So I think that's a good point that you bring up. If we do it, I do think we have to have something in the bylaw that, anyone present has the right to refuse to participate in.
Charles, would you be more on board with the idea if we did include some of the language? I think there was a comment from a patron about that, just that we should, as a board, is your First Amendment right to recite it or not recite it, or stay silent, or leave out the words "under God"? We all know that wasn't a part of the original Pledge of Allegiance. That was added many, many, many years later. And I, for one, would rather those two words be out of it, but I just don't say those two. And that there won't be any retribution or any, I don't remember what the other words were, against any staff person or board member who chooses not to participate.
Well, my thoughts are, as far as the Pledge of Allegiance, we grew up doing it in school. I think yeah, they still do it. We're a government entity. I guess I wasn't feeling like we're technically missing anything when we weren't doing it, but at the same time, we are a government entity, and I think we are think, we're US, we're US, we're United States, we're here for a reason and things like that. As far as the language on it's your First Amendment right, I think, probably should be in the bylaws, I think, to say, this is not a mandatory thing out there. To say it before every meeting seems to be overkill. I mean, I don't think we have to remind everybody you have a First Amendment right. I mean, otherwise, we're going to get, we have to say that every single time. That just seems to be too much to be able to say, oh, yeah, and by the way, you don't have to stand. I mean, it's kind of like we're apologizing for doing it, and I don't think we have to do that. Those are my thoughts on it. I just think it's just too much to say it after every single meeting. As far as the bylaws, if we want to do that, I think that's fine.
And are you saying, say the pledge at every meeting, but not the disclaimer?
I don't think we need to do the disclaimer
Got
at
it.
every meeting. I think that's just, I mean, because then we get into, are we going to have to say that every single time? I mean, I think we all know we have First Amendment rights. We don't have to remind people of their Second Amendment rights. We don't have to remind people of their, and so on and so forth. At what point does it stop? But to put it in the thing about, well, yeah, it's not required.
For me, I'm good with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm concerned about the clients that we serve. Do we run the risk of patrons not wanting to use the library or feeling like they're not included in the community because they don't ascribe to the Pledge of Allegiance? I just think we have to be careful because we're just in a different culture now. And I just don't think the value of doing it outweighs the impact that it could potentially have.
Well, if we're going to think that, then we could also go, and I think Anna would probably, maybe I just beat her to it, which would, are we going to exclude people by not doing it, right? But I think we're giving ourselves too much credit that we actually get watched that much.
Well,
Everybody should be watching this, but I don't think everybody is.
But I think it is kind of a button issue right now. So we do have to be careful what kind of message we want to send to the public.
Well, the public, I mean, I guess, we're a government entity. Then, if you're so much against government, then in the United States.
but I don't think not wanting to do it means you're against the government.
No, I agree. I think it's their right to do it, but to be offended because somebody else does it is equally bad as, I don't know, I think we just,
I don't think we were
to
offending anybody
tip-top.
when we weren't doing it. At least I wasn't aware of that. If that's
Well,
something.
I was.
Anna was.
I think
I
it's
appreciate
I
important.
wasn't, but Anna
Yeah,
was.
so there's
And
probably
then-
others out there who feel the
Yeah.
same way.
So then we run the risk of me saying that I am offended that we do it because I don't think it's necessary. And all I'm saying is that I think that it's not about us as much as it's about the people that we serve. Because we can get into the semantics with how we feel about it, but the community that we serve, if we're going to turn off the Muslim nation, the Muslims or Jewish people or any other group that may be out there, then do we run the risk of having that kind of impact when we're trying to serve a community and the constituents that we want to come and use our services?
Well, I would wonder if these other groups use our parks and rec services. They take advantage of county services. They're residents, they're part of our community, they take, right? I mean, so I don't know why the library would be different in that respect.
So by doing it, what are we, by saying it, what are we doing that we weren't doing before we started to say it?
Well, again, I'll just go back and say, as David said, this is a government organization. This is government. We work for the people. It is part of our tradition in this country to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in that capacity. If people want to refrain from saying it, standing, stating parts of it, I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, that is First Amendment right, freedom of speech. And I'm glad we talked about freedom of speech a couple months ago. So that's okay. And if we need to preserve and protect people for that by stating so in the bylaw, that's fine, that's great. But we're here as a government organization to serve the people. And I think reminding ourselves of that pledge is important when we get together to serve.
To you. and to the people that voted to do it. So I appreciate that and I understand that. I am simply saying that for us to now start to do it, do we run the risk, because it needs to be away from me or from us, it's the community. Do we run the risk of potentially alienating any of the community? When I was asked to serve on this board, I was not asked about my patriotism. I was not asked about, all those other issues in reference to me. I was on this board to help this board to be sure that we do the kind of things that make the community want to come and use our services. I can have my patriotism, but it doesn't offend me that we didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. And while I appreciate it that it does offend some or whomever, that's just my opinion.
So I would look to the chair for direction. Staff can certainly bring back language, not exactly on the citizen comment, but in that vein, to add to that regulation. And then if you'd like more discussion, we can put this back on, I guess, old business for next month, if that's.
Well, since we've already had the question and an approval of that, it would be up to someone on this board to make a motion to not recite the Pledge of Allegiance, since we already approved to do it. So that's an option. I would suggest tabling it for now to come back with additional language for the bylaws to see if that in any way helps and satisfies some of your concerns, Charles, and/or we could also put it for further discussion at the board retreat.
Good with that.
Okay, so, Charles, I guess this will be my last, but I think it is an interesting point. I think, we probably do all need to be reminded that, think about, the patrons more than ourselves. And I don't think there is any risk. I don't think anybody's not going to show up in the library because we do or we don't, but, so.
We will prepare some draft language for this, for ARM 105010, that addresses some of the concerns that no one is required to do it, heading toward the patron comment. And then we can talk at agenda review about where and when we want to bring it back and in what form for the conversation. So, okay, thank you.
That works for me. Thank you. Great discussion. Is there any other business or comments from the board? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move the library board of directors adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned.
Motion adjourned.
Same thing.